Hi, my name's Natalie, and I'm obsessed with following the latest trends and buying new clothes. However, my mother and sister aren't like that at all. I want to be a fashion designer when I leave school, but my mom always scoffs and tells me that isn't a real profession. Well, she is a university lecturer and seems to hate it. So I don't want to do something I don't love. So here's a little background about me. My parents split up when I was 12. They had never got on really well. I think that my dad made a lot of effort with my mom, but she always seemed frustrated with him. She would snap at him for tiny things and would seem bored when he was telling her something. My dad didn't seem to mind that much, though. Maybe he was worried that if he left my mom, he wouldn't see me and my sister as much. Eventually, though, it must have gotten to be too much for him. After a week of whispered arguing and concealed crying, my dad announced that he was moving out. They assured us that we would still see loads of them both, and they definitely made that their number one priority. In fact, in some ways, things improved a lot after they split up. We spent half the week at my mom's, half the week at my dad's, and then alternated weekends. It actually meant we got to spend more quality time with each parent. Strangely, my dad seemed to have taken it much better than my mom. Even though I thought he was the one more invested in the relationship before, it seemed like a huge weight had been lifted off his chest now. He was more relaxed and laughed more. My mom, on the other hand, was more stressed than ever and snapped at us constantly. After about a year, my dad introduced me to Jessica, his new girlfriend. I was taken aback. I hadn't expected my dad to move on so fast. Obviously, I was happy for him, but I wasn't sure I would get on with his new woman. What if she was like stepmothers in films? Super controlling and trying to get rid of the kids. What if I never got to see my dad anymore? But as soon as I met Jessica, my worries faded away. She seemed very friendly and kind. While chatting, I told Jessica about my love of clothes and that I wanted to try and start making some of my own. I was surprised when she admitted to also being really into making her own clothes. And she showed me a picture of her in a beautiful dress that she had made. It was absolutely beautiful. I asked her if she would help me make a dress for my end-of-term party, and she said she would love to. I couldn't believe I had just met Jessica. It already felt like we had known each other for ages. My dad was clearly as thrilled as we were that we got on well. When I went to my mom's that night, my little sister had already told my mom about Jessica. My mom looked extremely grumpy and was very short with me when she asked what I thought about Dad's new girlfriend. The next weekend I was spending with my dad, but he told me when I arrived that he had to go away with work and asked if I would mind spending the weekend with Jessica. I said I didn't mind at all. Jessica seemed really excited to spend time with me, too. We spent Friday night watching movies and eating chocolate, and she plaited my hair really nicely. The next day, we decided to go shopping for supplies for my dress. But it really just turned into a huge shopping spree. She was even more fun to go shopping with than my friends, because she had a really good eye for fashion. We spent Sunday working on my dress, and my weekend passed so fast because of how much fun I was having. I know it's awful, but I secretly wished that my mom could be a bit more like Jessica. Think how close we would be. When I got home to my mom's on Monday evening, she was too busy with work to talk to me until dinner time. She was actually acting really strangely, being really quiet and even more blunt than usual. It kind of seemed like she was depressed or something. I asked her if I could go to Dad's next weekend, saying that Jessica will help me with my homework. To my surprise, my mom burst into tears. I didn't know what to do. I had never seen my mom cry before. She started shouting at me, saying that it was fine if I preferred spending time with my dad's new girlfriend than her, that I could do what I wanted. I could see that it clearly wasn't fine, but I thought my mom was acting very childishly, and I wasn't about to argue with her in this mood, so I just left the room. The next weekend was amazing. We continued working on my dress, and I couldn't wait to try it on. Jessica was funny, but also really kind, and treated me like an adult. On Monday evening back at my mom's, I braced myself for her to get angry again. But she was strangely calm, which was kind of worse because it made me very uneasy. She didn't ask me how my weekend was. Instead, she asked me if I wanted to go out dress shopping after school on Wednesday. She said she had seen a lovely dress that would really suit me. I knew I should have told her about the fact that I was making my dress, but I didn't have the heart to. On Wednesday, we went to see the dress, and as I expected, it was hideous. It had long sleeves and was a burgundy velvet. I would be the laughingstock of my class. I told her that I was kind of looking for something a bit more floaty and short, and she told me that she didn't think a dress like that would be appropriate for me. I hate how she always tries to control my life. I was so annoyed that I told her I was making a dress with Jessica. She didn't say anything to me for the rest of the evening, but the next day, she had told me that I was staying at her house for the weekend because I needed to catch up on my schoolwork and because Jessica was ill. I knew this wasn't true, but I knew I had no power to argue with her. The weekend before my party, just as I was packing for my dad's, my mom told me that he and Jessica had gone away for the weekend. I was devastated. What was I going to wear? The party was on the following Friday night. I cried and ran to my room. I just wanted to be alone. But 5 minutes later, my mom stormed into my room and started shouting at me. She said that I was acting like a complete brat, and I didn't even deserve to go to the party, never mind have a nice dress to wear to it. I couldn't believe what she was saying. I suddenly exploded and told her that I didn't want to live with her anymore, and that I'm sick of her acting so depressed all the time, and why can't she just get a life? All these feelings just came pouring out of me, and I couldn't stop them. I told her how unfair it was that she didn't even give me a choice about where I wanted to live when she and Dad separated. I turned to face her and said, I'd rather live with Dad, because at least Jessica was nice to me and talked to me about stuff and actually wanted to hang out with me. I told her how bored I was living with a depressed mom and why couldn't she be a bit more cool, like Jessica? My mom burst into tears when she heard all of this, and she came over to my bed and tried to hug me, saying she was so sorry, and she'd sort herself out and make everything better. I was crying too, but I told her I was just sick of this life. It was making me so exhausted. My mom said she promised she would change, and she'd get some help for her depression. She asked for a second chance and explained that since Dad had met Jessica, she'd been jealous, and she'd been taking it out on me and my sister, and it wasn't fair, and she would try harder for us. She couldn't stop crying, and it really seemed like she was embarrassed about how jealous she'd been of Jessica. I just hoped things would get better. I couldn't bear this, and to top it all off, I wouldn't even get to go to the party now. The following Thursday night, I gave in to the fact that I wouldn't be going to the party the next day, and got into my pajamas to watch a film. I felt so sad. Everyone was going except me. Just as I clicked play, there was a knock on my door. My mom came in holding a bag. I figured it was going to be the burgundy dress. There was no way I was going to wear that thing. But then my mom pulled the dress out, and it was my dress, the one Jessica and I had been working on. I couldn't believe it. It turned out that Jessica had actually been ill, and the following weekend, she and my dad had gone to get me a surprise for my outfit, a beautiful tiara that my grandma wore at her wedding. Then Jessica had finished my dress as a surprise, and the most shocking part was that my mom had helped her. They had worked on it together. I ran and hugged my mom, and I couldn't stop smiling. She hugged me back and said she would do anything for me, even if that meant cooperating with Jessica.
Ever since 8th grade, my best friend Leah and I promised that we would take each other to our senior prom. We'd even sworn it in blood. So this was a legit pact that we wouldn't let either of us break. At the time of our story, it was January, the beginning of the new year and the new semester at school. Leah and I were headed to the lunchroom when she felt horrible pain in her knee. This pain was so bad that she lost her balance and fell to the ground. I grabbed her by her arm and pulled her up. She was shaking and her face was white. "Leah, are you okay?" I asked. I wanted to try to get her to the lunchroom quickly, thinking that maybe she was just hungry and needed to sit down. She sat with her hands in her knees for a few minutes before finally answering me. "Simon, I think something's really wrong with me. My knee has been hurting ever since I got kicked 2 weeks ago at the soccer game." She started to limp to the office, which was opposite of the lunchroom. I tried to stop her. "Let's just get some food." "No, I need the nurse," she said as she hobbled to the office. I helped her along the way, but as soon as she got there, she told me to go to lunch. Leah didn't make it to lunch that day. In fact, her mom picked her up early to take her to the hospital. I kept texting her all day long, hoping she would answer me and let me know that she was okay. It wasn't until around 8:30 that night that she finally texted back. She sent me a picture of an MRI, which is an X-ray of your body, and hers was of her knee, her lungs, and her neck. All of them were covered in spots. I didn't know what that meant, so I sent her a question mark. Almost instantly, my phone lit up. Leah was FaceTiming me. I pushed accept and saw her face for the first time since lunch. It wasn't as pale, but she looked tired. "Hey, what's going on? Did you go to the doctor? Are you sick?" I asked. Her eyes looked red and her hair was a mess. Leah could barely get the words out as she stared off the screen. I could see tears running down her cheeks. "I have cancer," she stated, before bursting into tears. "All of those pictures were of my body. I have tumors in several spots. They told me I may not make it to graduation." She set the phone down and all I could hear were her high-pitched wails and her mom in the background trying to calm her. Instead of listening to my best friend sob, I decided to drive over to her house even though it was late and I was going to miss curfew. I had to see her, to hug her, in case I didn't get the chance again. When I got to her front door, I didn't even knock. I just barged right in and ran to her room. Her mom was there hugging her, and I scooped in next to them. We all cried for a bit, and then when things calmed down, Leah turned to me. "I have to start chemo next week." I nodded. I didn't know what to say. I grabbed her hand so she would know I'll always be there for her. A couple months passed, and although Leah was doing good, she wasn't out of the woods. The tumors were shrinking. Some of the chemo was working, but she was still struggling to live her day-to-day life. There were only a couple more days left until prom, and I was excited to finally pick out a corsage to put around her wrist. She was doing so good that the doctor told her she could go to the dance, but she had to sit down for most of it. She was allowed to slow dance, but no crazy dancing. She was okay with that. And so was I. My other best friend Malik and I were out tux shopping. Leah's dress was going to be maroon and she wanted me to match. So I was going to every tux rental store I could find to try and match the perfect shade of her dress. It was harder than you might think. While we were at the 57th shop, my phone started to ring. It was Leah's mom. I answered, my voice already shaking. "Hi, Simon. Leah's back in the hospital. She wants you to come up here when you can." I didn't even hesitate. I said goodbye and started to walk out of the store. Malik stopped me and told me to at least rent my tux. I told him Leah was in the hospital and probably wasn't going to make it to prom. That's when he got a big grin on his face and grabbed the first tux he saw. "We're getting this," he said, pulling me over to the register. "It's not even the right color," I said. "It doesn't matter. If Leah can't come to prom, we'll take prom to her." That sounded like a genius idea. Malik and I visited Leah in the hospital that night. She wasn't doing well. Her eyes were sunken with dark black circles around them, and her thinning hair was messy and damp. I asked her mom to please make sure Leah feels beautiful tomorrow when we come back, and she asked why. That's when I pulled her into the hallway and told her we were going to plan the biggest prom party for Leah we could imagine. Her mother grinned. I hadn't seen her smile like that in months. She gave me the biggest hug and kissed me on my cheek. You are a beautiful person, Simon. We love you. I love you too, I said as I walked away. Now, it was time to plan the prom that would hopefully bring Leah the dream she deserved. That night, I went on Facebook and invited all of Leah's best friends to come to the dance we were having. I went to Target and got some fairy lights, a bunch of streamers, and finally to the florist to purchase a beautiful corsage for the most beautiful girl in the world. We advised everyone to get dressed up in their prom attire for the next evening, as we were going to have a shindig whether Leah could go to prom or not. She deserved to be treated like a queen. Although some people declined our invitation as they didn't want to miss their own prom, many of our closest friends said they would come and even planned to bring food, drinks, and other things to make Leah feel like one in a million, which she was. Malik came over the next afternoon and we loaded up his truck with all of the things that we got over the last day and a half, including a Bluetooth speaker and a fog machine that Malik found in his sister's room. We got dressed in our tuxes and made sure that everyone that said they were coming would be there. Even Malik's girlfriend decided to come along. She got Leah's dress from our house and was going to do her hair and makeup before the dance. I couldn't wait to see the surprised look on Leah's face when we showed up. All night, she was texting me about how sad she was that she was going to miss prom, and she kept begging me to go without her. I told her that wasn't happening, and to just be happy, and I'd see her tomorrow. She didn't know we'd have all this for her, and I couldn't wait to show her. The drive to the hospital was filled with anticipation. Leah's mom met us at the front door to take all of the decorations. Leah had been sent to another room to do some tests, so we had time to set up before she got back. In just under half an hour, the hospital room sparkled with fairy lights and had gorgeous blue and green streamers running along the bed and window. Malik set up the fog machine, which the doctor said wasn't a good idea, so we had to leave it off. The music was playing softly, and we moved some of the furniture and medical equipment out of the way so we could have a dance floor. Leah arrived, and although she looked pale, her eyes lit up at the sight of what was ahead of her. At the same moment, she started to cry. "You guys, I'm not dressed for prom," she giggled and came over to hug me. "That's okay. We got everything that you need right here. Take your time. Ashley is going to help you with your makeup and your dress. We'll be waiting out here as long as you need." It seemed like forever, but it was probably only 20 minutes later. Leah emerged from the hospital bathroom with her hair in a braid that wrapped around the top of her head, and her beautiful maroon dress that clung to her in all the right places. It was sparkly and made her eyes glow. This was the exact moment I realized that I was in love with Leah. It seemed like everything had stopped when she walked out of the bathroom. I was so happy to see her so happy. I went over to her and gave her a huge hug. I pulled her hand up to mine and said, "I'm the luckiest guy in the world to have you as my prom date." Then I slid the corsage on her wrist. Malik got the party started, and we all began to dance, have snacks, and crack jokes about how lame the other prom probably was. After an hour, I could tell that Leah was struggling to keep up. "Hey, you can sit down if you need to." She grabbed onto my arms as I helped her sit in the chair. She was looking pale again. "Are you okay?" I asked. She waved me off. "Yeah, I'm fine, just all the medicine and tests today. I'm tired. But I'm having a great time, and I am so happy and so thankful that you did this, Simon. I really appreciate it. I love you." I know she was saying I love you as a friend, but it made my stomach fill with butterflies. "I love you too, Leah," I said. There must have been a look in my eye that told her I didn't mean as a friend, and that's when she leaned over to kiss me. I had never kissed a girl before. Don't judge me. I know I'm a senior, but it was never something that I thought about. Kissing Leah felt like home. I just didn't want to break her. I knew she shouldn't be kissing me right now. I don't think she cared. We pulled back, and I smiled at her. She rested her head on my chest, and we watched as the other couples danced and threw popcorn at each other from across the room. Thinking back on that night, I am so happy that I was able to give Leah her wish of being my prom date. After everyone left, her and I cuddled on her bed some more. We kissed, and I told her that I loved her again. She pulled me close and set it back, staring into my eyes. Then we both laid down. Leah was getting ready to go to bed, and I was getting ready to head home. Her mom walked in and told me to get out before I got yelled at by the night nurses. We hugged, and I left feeling triumphant, ready to take on the world. At 7 the next morning, I received a phone call from Leah's mom. She had passed away in the night, sometime soon after I left the hospital. When she told me, I was speechless. I had plans to go to the hospital today and bring Leah some books she'd wanted to read. There was a big stack of new bestsellers sitting on my desk. I wasn't much of a reader, so the books broke my heart. I started to weep. I haven't cried that hard since I was a little boy, but it felt good to let my emotions out. I was practically wailing when my own mother barged in my room to see me laying in the fetal position on the floor. "What's going on, Simon?" she said, terrified. I could barely say the words. Leah died. My mom knelt beside me and hugged me for what seemed like hours as I cried. Leah was my best friend, my second half, my one true love. I know it sounds corny, but she was. I just realized over the weekend that I love this girl more than anything in the entire world. She was always there for me. She never gave up on me, and she was always passionate about what I wanted in life as much as she was about her own desires. I will forever be thankful that I was able to spend Leah's last night with her and with our friends having a blast. I'll never forget the smile on her face, the love in her eyes that night. Although I have to go through the rest of my life without my other half, I'll be okay. Leah's family will always be a part of my life, and I'm hoping they'll continue to want me in theirs. I do make some pretty incredible hamburgers after all. Leah was caring, gentle, and willing to try anything. So today, I'd like you to try and be a little more like Leah. Thank you all for coming. The entire time I was speaking at Leah's funeral, I couldn't stop staring at the photo they used for her memorial, her senior picture. She had all of her beautiful blonde hair cascading down her back, her huge blue eyes shining in the autumn sun. This was one of her favorite pictures, so I was thankful they shared that with everyone. After I finished my piece, her parents came to hug me. We all cried together, and they thanked me for loving their daughter. That happened over a year ago now, and I'm still recovering from the death of my best friend. Leah's parents are good. We get together every weekend for board games and burgers. I'm hoping as the years go on, we can continue to have this strong bond, and that whoever I end up with will be half the woman Leah was. I'm sure she'll help me out from where she's looking down on us. Thank you for listening to my story. What was something crazy you did for a friend? Please like and subscribe.